Hiya, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today I am making a rainbow card, and this is made using a mix of different products. So we've got Stampin' Up, clearly Besotted, and I think even some American crafts. We have memory keepers, so all sorts of things. But I really wanted to make a rainbow card because right now I don't know if this is worldwide or just here in the UK, but the rainbow obviously has for years symbolized a lot of different things. Within Christianity, it's a symbol of God's promise, and then obviously it's really just mentally a sign that even in the stormiest, darkest times in our life, that there is something beautiful at the end of that, and that we will get through it to something that is stunning. And then obviously in the LGBTQ community, it's that sign of inclusiveness, cohesion, and I guess beautiful diversity, you know, that all comes together and just makes this incredible thing. So it's all of these things, and currently here in the UK, and as I said, don't know if it's happening worldwide, but it's being used by this as a symbol by the children particularly, and they're drawing them and they're putting them in our window. We've been sent one by a friend's grandchild because we asked if he would do us one, and we've put it in our window basically as a sign really of hope and, again, I guess, cohesiveness and support for our NHS and our key workers, our people that, you know, deliver the food and just help other people out, our neighbours, you know, just for everybody. So I thought it would be really appropriate to do a rainbow. So here, while I've been chatting, what I've been doing is I've been taking this clearly Besotted and a number of different colour inks from my Stampin' Up. Now for this, I really did feel that it would be helpful to use my stamp platform. You could do it without, but I think it would be a lot easier with some sort of stamp platform. Now what I'm doing is I'm putting my little different layers of rainbow down, and I'm trying to make sure that they overlap very slightly with the one before. I mean, literally just really slightly, but it's just to make that sort of no kind of little white gaps or anything between it. And if you want a list of the colours and the specific products and card that I'm using, then go over across to the blog post. You'll find the link below this video if you're on YouTube, and you'll have a list of all the colours used, all the products used, etc, etc. So here we finished our rainbow. It was on a piece of Whisper White card that was actually already cut out using a Sue Wilson die. I'm actually going to cut it again. It's slightly bigger than I wanted, and I'm going to cut it using these Noble rectangle dies. I absolutely love these. I've also got the stitch ones, and I keep forgetting to use those. So you'll see there that I'm using a smaller one, and I'm just positioning that. I've got a magnetic platform, so I don't need to worry about using the tape. Sometimes I use tape. You'll see there's some tape on the top just for more sort of, if I've got more than one die, because the magnetic part sometimes pushes them apart, but for one die like this it works perfectly. So then I'm cutting a frame using the third and the fourth die in those Sue Wilson collection, and again just using some of that Whisper White card. And again, I'm finding that the magnetic platform's working fine for this, and I didn't need to stick it down. Now clearly you can keep that middle piece like I did just with the rainbow. I kept that from before when I cut a frame out, and then you can use it for something else, so don't throw it away. I mean, you might even find you can just use it as it is, but what I want in this occasion is just this frame, and I wanted a very thin frame. I didn't want anything too heavy. I then cut another piece of the Whisper White using the larger die of those two that I cut the frame out, so that would be the third die in that collection. Then using the Stampin' Up, strangely both called the same name as the clearly Besotted, they're both called Over the Rainbow. I'm using this sentiment, and what I'm doing is I'm actually rainbowing my sentiment. So I'm putting a little bit of ink on the first bit, and then I'm doing a little bit of ink on the next bit. Now here what I did was I missed the orange. I was thinking that the red and the yellow together would kind of blend, but it just didn't. The Whisper White was just too good. It kept it too pure. But then I ended up completely messing it up anyway. I had to completely restamp my rainbow and completely restamp my sentiment, because basically I accidentally moved the whole thing and it just went all like double. It looked like I had double vision. So then I took the same coloured cardstock as the inks, because as you may know if you know Stampin' Up, and I'm sure most crafters know Stampin' Up, the cardstock will match the inks. So we've got Real Red here, etc., that match exactly the same. And I cut 1/2-inch strips. I just used scraps that were in there and I just cut them, so if they were a bit shorter lengths it didn't really matter. I just made use of it. And then I took that larger piece of Whisper White that I cut using that white die with that larger die on the Whisper White card, and then I'm using my white glue, and I'm just doing like a chunk of glue for a couple of pieces, like 2 or 3 pieces, and then I'll do it again, because if you do too much, if you cover the whole piece with glue, it just doesn't work. And then I'm literally just going across at an angle. You could do it straight up and down, you could do it horizontally, you could do it however you wanted, but I decided to go at that sort of angle. I just thought that was fun. And what I wanted to show you here was that I actually, because I was using scraps, this orange piece didn't fit all the way across, but I happen to know that I'm going to be putting something across the middle of this section here. So what I'm doing is taking a second piece that was also small from the scraps, and I'm moving that orange piece up, and so it's going to be underneath the central piece that I'm going to be sticking on, so you're not going to see the join, so it's going to look like it's one piece, and it saves you sort of wasting, you know, and having to cut a whole piece when really you don't need to, because you can just hide it underneath. So I just wanted to show you that little trick, so that you could, if necessary, for a lot of this, if you had shorter pieces, little scraps, then you could make use of that. Now clearly, as you can see, it's much longer and much bigger, particularly when I turn it over. You can see now how it's definitely overhanging that white cardstock. And then I just take my roller. This is the roller I always use just for this purpose. I don't use it for any inking or anything, and I just rolled over it on the back just to make sure it's really stuck down, and then I'm putting it to one side just to make sure it completely hardens and dries. We're then taking some of the Whisper White but thick, and we're going to cut that to make the back of our card, because that Whisper White that we just did with all the colour on is going to be the front of the card. So I cut this piece to 6 3/4 square, and then I scored one side at 1 inch, so that makes it a 5 3/4 by 6 3/4 card back. And then I took my frame and I took this hunky dory foam, and it comes in these like strips. It's really helpful. I'm sure other companies have done this, but I've not seen it, and I love the fact that you can get these really thin strips. So I put that all the way around the frame, and then I did the same, and this is actually on the back of the rainbow stamped piece, and I just put that all across the back of that as well, because I wanted obviously the frame and this rainbow piece to be equal level. I didn't want the rainbow to be sitting flatter than the frame, because it would kind of almost look less important. The dimension would affect how it looked, in my opinion. And then all I did was, as you can see, once that was dry, I just took my trimmer and cut off the excess. You could of course take your scissors and do the same. And then we want to add that coloured piece that we just trimmed to the card back that we made, and we've got that little 1 inch flap. So I'm taking some red tape. You want to make sure you really rub it down. That's what's the key with the red tape, to help you peel it up. If you don't rub it down really hard, then you can never get that backing off. And then I'm just taking this multicoloured rainbow piece. It's thick enough on its own, it doesn't need another piece of card. You know, it's got like the Whisper White plus all those extra layers. Now the Whisper White that I've put the coloured card on is the regular Whisper White, whereas the back is the thick Whisper White. But once I add all those layers of colour on, it's obviously more than equal to the thickness of the back. Now what you'll notice is that I lined the corners up on the open edge, and I didn't worry so much about how it looked on that inside edge, because I knew I was putting the frame on. Now you would notice if the corners didn't match on the open edge, even with the frame, it would kind of show, but with the inside edge you're not going to notice that, because the frame is going to cover that up. So it's just because obviously where it's not matching, if it didn't match on the open edge, you would see that it didn't match. It would just pop out from the side and it would be much more obvious. But this is obviously covering up all of that. But if you're not sure it's going to do that, then just double check before you put it down. But I think you'll find that mostly it will cover that up for you. And there is the next piece, which is the centerpiece, which is obviously our main element, and as you can see is covering up that join that I was talking about with that orange. So you can see you could actually do quite a lot of those with smaller pieces and get away with it. And then I decided it really just needed something on the rainbow to make it pop, but I didn't want to cover the color, so I just took the stickles here and I kind of went between the colour. Now I know it kind of goes over the edge of the colour a little, but it's not like completely over all of it. Now you'll see on the kind of like fluffy edges, as I call them, I kind of fluffied the glitter as well, but in the middle part I just mainly stuck to the bits in between. Particularly once it dries, it sort of shows that better. It just doesn't cover up that colour so much, and obviously when it dries, this sort of dark kind of wet look that you see goes away. And then finally I took a piece of American Crafts yellow cardstock, which I thought just looks so gorgeous with this rainbow. It's just like sunshine, isn't it? And it's 12 by 12, and I cut it to size. I made it into an envelope using the We Are Memory Keepers envelope board, and as you also saw, I put a bit of yellow card on the back of the card itself and just stamped my details on there. I just again thought that was just a nice little touch. Sometimes I like to do that, just like a strip, and it was just again it was a scrap, so yes, I could keep that scrap, but I thought, right, I'll just use it and make it the back just look a little bit more interesting, gives it a bit more stability, etc, etc. So I hope you've enjoyed making this card with me. I felt it was just so appropriate, and I just hope that you guys like it. I thought it turned out absolutely stunning. I hope you agree. So thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to go on across to the blog post to see all those photos. As always, I've taken a ton, plus all the links to the products used. Thank you again, and I will see you again next time. Bye for now. Bye.